From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar?
That plane crash, Johnny. Did you hear?
Yes, I just turned off my radio.
Oh, it's horrible.
Well, who is this?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Sam Harris, Columbia.
Oh, sure. Does your company carry the policies on that airline?
Yes, but I'm not thinking of that. That crash was planned.
They're definite about it now.
Yes, an explosion, some kind of a bomb. There were 13 people killed in the plane. They don't know how many in the houses it crashed into. We've got to place responsibility. The company wants to do whatever it can. We've got to find whoever is responsible.
Sure, Mr. Harris. You want me to go out?
Yes, we do. Their airline representative is a man named Reed. Go out and do everything you can.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Columbia All Risk Insurance Company. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Fairway matter. Expense account item 1, $250 cab fare to the scene of the plane crash, which, as you know... I remembered Captain Jim Lenhart in a case we'd shared last year, and I found him in the group of silent men. The silence and the expressions told better than words how they felt about the row of sheet-draped bodies on the ground.
How was Reed making out? I thought he was going to pieces a little while ago.
He's still in pretty bad shape.
Well, he's not alone. But for us, anyway, Dollar, it could have been worse. Plane could have been filled.
Yeah, that crossed my mind. And you and I are thinking together, Captain, that our approach will be to find out, if we can, which victim was the planned victim.
Well, with what we have now, I don't see any other way to start, do you?
No. The possibilities, as I see them, are murder with a motive, suicide disguised, or a homicidal maniac.
That must cover it. I have men covering the airport and a 2-mile circle around it. Their orders are to question everybody they spot and search every car. That's about all we can do tonight.
Well, I'll see you in the morning, then, if it's all right with you.
It sure is. I'm glad to have you on the case. I'll meet you in my office at 9.
Good.
No, there's another ambulance. And get the rest of these poor devils into the morgue. Try to find out who they are.
The next morning, the official findings were released. The explosive had been nitroglycerin. It had been detonated by some electrical means, which it was assumed was connected to a timing device that had not yet been found. Captain Lenhart's men had questioned a number of suspicious characters near the airport without result. But he himself had received an anonymous tip on a possible suspect, a Wilbur Wheeler, who was a member of the ground crew that had serviced the plane just before its takeoff. Wheeler was shown to the captain's office about 40 minutes after I'd gotten there.
Why'd you pick me to come up here? Why didn't you get Straker or Mills? They're over me.
It's just routine, Wheeler.
Routine, but you must have a reason. I got a right to know if you got a reason, haven't I?
Why do you think we started with you?
Well, I'm asking you, aren't I?
Don't be evasive, Wheeler. Can't you say you don't know?
The stewardess who died in that crash, Shirley Goodhue.
I know. I know it.
We understand that she meant something to you.
Weren't you in love with her?
Yes.
We understand that you made quite a pest of yourself phoning her at home, waiting for her at the airport.
And then a week or so ago, you learned she was going to marry the co-pilot who was killed. What's his name?
Bill Strand, wasn't it, Wheeler?
Yeah. You're saying that you think I caused that crash, aren't you?
You wanted to know why you were here?
I told you it was just routine, Wheeler.